Come along with us as we take our farm fresh eggs from the chicken coop to the freeze dryer and then back to the skillet so that we can have some good food for our family.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Hideaway Homestead. We're going to be talking about something different today. We're going to be dehydrating, I guess you could say. Freeze drying is a better word. We're going to be freeze drying some eggs today. And so we're going to show you the whole process of how that works and what we do. And hopefully this will be something that will benefit you. So stick with us and we'll show you what we're doing. This is the empty cartons from 6 dozen eggs. We are getting ready to put these into the freeze dryer. And so we're going to show you that process now. This is our Harvest Right freeze dryer that we purchased a few months back. And so now we're getting ready to put these eggs right here into the freeze dryer. They go into these trays, and then the trays go inside the freeze dryer.
This is a large. I mean, this is a medium.
Yeah, this is the size, the medium-sized freeze dryer. So it holds 4 trays. There is a large, and I think it holds 5, right, Carol?
Right, and they're a little bit bigger.
And it's a little bit bigger, a little wider, I think. Okay, so anyway, so we're going to show you how we do this. We learn from experience that when you put eggs in these things, you have to put your trays in almost halfway and then pour the eggs in. And you have to pour them real slow, because if you don't, they run out the back and you end up with it all inside your freeze dryer and it freezes because it has ice inside. So we're going to pour this one in here very slowly.
We have experimented and found that we can put 1.5 dozen of our fresh home eggs into each tray. Now, a lot of people put these trays in their freezer and freeze them and then load the frozen ones, they're solid, real easy, put them into their freeze dryer. But we don't have that kind of space in our freezer, and anytime you move these trays full of eggs, you're risking a big mess on the floor.
So whenever you push these in, you push them in very slowly, because they can slosh out in the back side of this and you won't know it. There, that one's in.
Okay, now we'll do the process again. We've several more bowls of these cracked and stirred eggs, so we'll do the rest of these also.
Okay, here goes tray number 2.
The way we have our freeze dryer set up, these top tiers, these top trays are just at the edge of what I can reach comfortably, and so it's easier for us if Kevin takes care of these, because I made a major mess one time. I just couldn't reach above, or I couldn't see it, and so not a good thing. There's some kind of a little lip near the back, and sometimes they click on that and sometimes they don't. So we'll repeat this process with the other trays. It's easy enough for me to do these lower ones, but it's the tall ones that I have problems with. And it's just due to the fact of how we have our freeze dryer set up. It's on a pretty sturdy cart, and it just puts it up to a certain height. Now we run our freeze dryer with small fans. One of these is always pointed towards the vacuum pump, and then the other one is on the other side. You can't see it right now, but that goes into the intake so that it keeps cooler air blowing along. Our freeze dryer is in the utility room, and so it's not a lot of air circulation and no air conditioning. Most of the time through the summer, our freeze dryers had a warning on it that hot room temperatures might be causing your cycle to be slower than normal, but it still does it pretty quickly. Usually even something very wet like this takes just about a day, little over 24 hours. So by tomorrow evening, it's about 8 o'clock tonight, by tomorrow evening we should be able to get these out and put them into powder form. Okay, we have a fairly new Harvest Right freeze dryer. We just got it in March, I think, of 2022. So now we push continue, and it'll ask if the drain valve is closed, and now it is freezing. We have pre-set it. I don't know if that'll come up on the video or not because it's sort of a bright little box on there, but we had this already down to what, 30 degrees or something.
It was, yeah.
So these
cold.
should already be quick on the drying, or on the freezing side anyway.
Yeah,
So,
the colder it is when you put stuff in, the quicker it goes through the process.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
If we had pre-frozen them and put them in already frozen, well then it's already done the work ahead of time, so that goes a lot faster. But this will go down to negative 40 degrees, I think, before it starts the process. So over here is that other fan, and it is blowing towards the air intake. So there you go. We'll come back in a day, 24 hours, and see what happens to our 6 dozen eggs.
Okay, our freeze dryer is finished with this batch of eggs. So now I'm getting ready to take this out. I've already turned it off, and I know you can't see this because of the brightness of that little window there, but it's all lit up and it says it's ready to be taken out. Anyway, so what I have to do at this point is to open up this valve back here on the side, and it's down here on the side. I don't know if you can see it, it's kind of dark over here, and you'll hear a spewing because it's letting the pressure out of the chamber. So listen to this. There's a tube that runs down inside of this bucket right here, and that's where the tube goes to. So now that I've got the pressure released in here, I can open this. If you don't release the pressure, you cannot open this door. So I'm going to open this up, and there are my trays. They're done. And you may see a little bit of cold air coming out of this thing. It actually has ice that coats the inside of the chamber wall right there. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it is quite cold in there. So I'm going to take these out and take them inside the kitchen, and so I will show you what we do next. So we'll be right back with you. Alright, I got the tray brought into the house, and this is what it looks like. It is quite dry, and so what we'll do is we'll take these pieces right here and pull these out. You can see, I'm going to see if I can get this out where you can see it. See, it's just a little dry piece of thing. It looks like a piece of styrofoam. It feels like one. It's lightweight. There's no weight to it. And so what we'll do then is we will put these, what we do is we crush these up into a powder form, and you'll see that in just a minute. So we will crush this up into a powder form, and then we will put them into these jars. Now I've got this little funnel thing that we use here. If you've got one of these, great. If you don't have to. It just keeps us from making such a mess when we're putting it into the jar. We just set that right inside the top of the jar there, and then we just pour it into there and into the jar. Each one of these trays holds about 12.5 eggs. And these are raw eggs when we start with, and so you will have to rehydrate them when you're going to use them. and we put them into these mason jars or ball jars or whatever you call them. And then we use this sealer here. It's my little spatula that I use to dig the stuff out of the tray. And we have this little rubber gasket thing that goes on top of the jar. I'll show you that in just a minute, but this is all the stuff that we use. This is our little sealer here. It's called a food saver. We've had this thing forever. It's ancient, but it still works, and I'll show you that process in a minute too. And then here are our jars, and this is our oxygen absorbers. These are little packs. This is a sealed up bag, and so it's like a piece of the rock, I call it. And we'll show you how we do that too. We put one of those in each jar just to keep these things from getting moisture in them. They shouldn't get it, but you never know. So we just do it as a precaution. Okay, so stay tuned and we're going to go on with this process and I'll show you what I'm doing. Alright, so what I do is I dig these things out of here. I use this little spatula because it's easy to scoop this stuff out of here. So I take these little pieces out of here and I just crush them up in my hand. Of course, you want to make sure you got clean hands when you do this, and I do. I just wash my hands. Some people use gloves, and if you want to use gloves, you can. That's great. But I just crunch them up in my hand. They're not hard. It's real soft to do. And so you end up with a little powder like this, and then we just dump it into the jar like that. And we just continue this process until we've got all this crunched up. And then we can seal the jars up and save them, put them on a shelf or in a cabinet or something like that. And you can see this is usually a pretty quick process. Doesn't take a long time to do this. Just got to crunch them up and dump them in. Sometimes it will make a little bit of a mess, so that's just to be expected. Can't help it. Try not to get it everywhere as much as possible, but it always ends up happening anyway. And that's just, I think it's just how it goes with anything that you do. So, anyway, and you can probably see that we have this blue silicone in the bottom of this tray. Carol ordered these online, and what they do is they keep the eggs or whatever you're putting in these trays from sticking to the metal, to the tray. And it's nice. They work great. So if you are planning to do this, you might want to consider investing in those. I don't think they're real expensive. We can maybe put some information down in the lower section here on the video, and you can see how much they are or whatever, or find out where she got them from. Like I said, she ordered them, I didn't, so I don't know what she did or where she got them from. Anyway, so this is the process that we do. We just keep doing this until we get the jar full, and this one's getting pretty close to being full. Most of the time, we have a medium-sized freeze dryer, as you had heard earlier in the video, and so it holds 4 trays. We can usually get, I think all 4 trays usually takes about 6 or 7 of these pint jars and to fill them. And so it takes about 6 or 7, depending on how big your eggs are and that kind of thing, and how much you put in them and all that. We pack ours pretty good sometimes, usually. Main reason for that is because we have a lot of eggs. We've got a lot of chickens, and so we're laying a lot of eggs. Okay, so I just kind of push that down in there a little bit. Now we put our oxygen absorbers in one of these jars and seal it up. We will put several of them in this jar and seal it up because it's just easier than having to try to open up that bag, that Mylar bag, and reseal it every time. So I'll take this off. This one actually only has 1 left in it, so I'm going to have to take that out and put some more in there. Okay, so our oxygen absorber goes right in the top of the jar. And what I usually do is whenever I get to this point, I just take the lid and just set it on top of the jar and just leave it like that until I'm done with all of my jars. And then I go back and seal them all up one at a time. And to do that, we use this thing here. This is a jar sealer. It just goes right on the top. Let me move over here so you can see it a little better. Just goes right over the top of the jar. If you've never done this before, this is the process that you go through. Alright, so I finally got that thing to stay on there. Move this over a little bit. That goes on top of your jar. This tube goes in the top, like that. And you push the button and hold this down. Pull this tube out, take this off, and voila, all sealed up. So now all we have to do is put our ring on it, and it's ready to go into storage, or wherever you're planning to keep it. So that's one jar down, and I will have to open this other package over here. Of this is the oxygen absorbers, and you can see it's sealed up quite well. We haven't used this yet. It's a brand new package. So as soon as I open this, these guys are going to start absorbing oxygen out of the air. So what I want to do is I want to put some of these into this jar and then seal this back up as quick as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and show you what happens. What happens is when these things start to absorb oxygen, they heat up. They actually get hot after a few minutes. So I'm going to cut this open like so. And there they are. Now they're starting to move around. So I'm going to take a few of these out, put some of them in this jar. You don't have to do it this way. You can leave them in the package they came in if you want to. You know, we've found that it's easier for us, that we don't have to keep sealing this bag up every time we use these. You do have to seal this jar, but it's a little quicker process than having to seal this bag up. So we just stick a few of these in this jar, get them into here, like so. You put as many as you want to in there. And then I'll just put the lid on this. This is not sealed up, but at least it's out of the air. Now I'm going to seal this bag back up so that it doesn't keep getting air to it. And then we'll go on with our process. Okay, I got that bag sealed back up. Now, edit that out. Alright, so I will continue filling jars and we will show you the final product. Alright, we got these guys all done. I ended up with 6 jars again, and it seems to always work out that way. Like I mentioned earlier, we started out with 6 dozen eggs, and we can get about 1.5 dozen in each tray. We had 4 trays, and it works out well. You can use these for all kinds of different things. And keep in mind, this is raw eggs, so you have to make sure that you keep these things cleaned. We put them inside of we keep them in the house, and we keep them inside of a cabinet in a dry location, so that they don't get any moisture. And we put an oxygen absorber in each of these jars and seal them up so that there's no moisture to them at all. Once you open that, then you have to replace the oxygen absorber if you don't use all of the eggs. This is a good protein. And like I said earlier, you can use these eggs for a lot of different things. You can use them for baking, scrambled eggs if you want to make scrambled eggs for breakfast. They're good for that. So there's a lot of different uses that you can do with these things, and so we think it's great.
All right, so now the test is here. We saved out some of the powdered scrambled eggs, I guess they would be, the powdered freeze-dried eggs, and we're going to do a test to see how they rehydrate, and how they cook up. So the standard is 2 tablespoons of powder with 2 tablespoons of water equals 1 egg. So let's just do 1.
And I was smart this time and did the dry thing first. So we'll just stir these up and see what they turn into. Sort of runny looking right now, but maybe it will set up a little bit more. Some of the things that we have freeze-dried and then rehydrated, they take a little bit of time to absorb the moisture. Things like we did with spaghetti, you have to let it sit for a little while. I did some macaroni and cheese, same thing there, that it takes a while for the water to get to the center of that item. So let this stir just a little bit. I think I was pretty level on my, so it's sort of looking runny like eggs. Let's see what happens when we pour it into the skillet. This little thing, I got some butter in there. I never do one egg at a time, so this is quite the test to see how one single egg, we always do at least two and usually more than that, in this big old pan, which isn't that big, but it's almost making like a crepe. Cooking up real fast. By the way, we don't sell our eggs for 20 cents a dozen. That's a very old, supposedly vintage sign, so don't get any ideas. You're going to get a bargain from us. Here we go. Let me get a new fork. Probably needs a little bit of salt. Don't all eggs need salt? There goes our sign. And let's see what we end up with. I like my scrambled eggs cooked thoroughly. I don't like any liquid in them, so looks like most of this got done. Smells just like a regular scrambled egg. I got to say that. If I didn't know where that came from, I would never guess that that was a freeze-dried egg. Kevin, you brave enough to taste this?
Sure.
It's fairly hot still. So what do you think?
That's good.
Yep.
That tastes just like a regular egg.
Yep.
Wow.
So this is something that will be very valuable to us. I think about the times in the past where I wanted to make up a batch of brownies or something like that, and I was just an egg short or something. Now I can do that, because we'll just gather up however many eggs worth we need out of some of this freeze-dried egg. This will also take us through the months when our chickens aren't laying, or if they're molting or something like that, or if something happens to our chickens. We heard about somebody today who had a predator get into their pen and wiped out a lot of their flocks. So that can happen to people, and so this way we've got something on the shelf, stable, for, they say, up to 20-25 years. I'm not planning to hold out that long to eat them, but it's a very good thing. So glad you came along with us from the beginning to the end, and I hope that this will be helpful to you just to see how it works out for us. Until next time, thank you for joining us on Hideaway Homestead.